Welcome to A Line Through Time, where I take the time to look through your favourite franchises and work out how it all lines up. We're going to be doing something a little different this time. The Zelda series, for the most part, has a complete and officially defined timeline. It doesn't work, at all, but that's what we have. So, rather than piecing it together as we go like I usually do, instead we're going to focus more on the history of the timeline itself. See, Nintendo didn't actually have an official timeline until the series' 25th anniversary in 2011. Until then, it was anarchy. It turned friend against friend, brother against brother, people died in the streets over this thing, and Nintendo simply sat back in its ivory tower laughing, knowing that its fans would sooner turn on each other over differing opinions than on Nintendo for doing a piss poor job of continuity. In the end, no one was right, because no one could be right. 25 years of development where continuity was an afterthought ruined any chance this series had of having a cohesive narrative throughout. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back to the beginning, back to 1985 to the development of Super Mario Bros. On the NES. Director Shigeru Miyamoto, or as he's better known to his friend Shigsy Miyamigzy, had tons of ideas for the game, as did his team, but a lot of them didn't gel together, so they split the ideas up into two separate lists and turned the unused ideas into a separate game the following year, The Legend of Zelda. As such, the plot is basically a carbon copy of Mario. The princess has been kidnapped by a giant furry, go kill him. But people latched onto the gameplay, so Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link released a year later, ironically with massively overhauled gameplay that no one liked. Things were simple then. Sure, it now turned out there was a second Zelda who'd slept through the previous adventure due to various shenanigans, but it was just a sequel and that's it. Still, I wonder if Zelda 2 being too different for fans is why Nintendo is so strict with its formulas today. Either way, this led to 1991's much safer sequel, A Link to the Past on the SNES. The back of the box claims this game features the predecessors of Link and Zelda, though whether this meant Zelda 1 Zelda or Zelda 2's much older Zelda was anyone's guess. But it's a prequel and that's easy enough to understand. Discounting the interview where Miyamoto claimed it took place after Zelda 1 and 2. The 1993 Game Boy spin-off Link's Awakening is apparently about the same Link from ALTTP, setting it before Zelda 1. Again, things were simple, even if the Dream World Link enters is apparently the same one from Mario 2, and I'm not getting into that, fuck you. After that though, things started to fall apart. Nintendo seriously underestimated the levels of investment fans started to feel for this fictional universe. The gameplay first approach may have led to some allegedly great games, but the series and its settings suffered for it. All of this started with 1998's Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo 64, of which people's opinions tend to boil down to
10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100, best game, best game.
It was revolutionary, it changed gaming forever. You've heard this overblown hyperbole before. Ocarina was alleged to be another prequel going back even further than the previous duology and seemingly expanded on the imprisoning war mentioned in the SNES game's backstory. The game primarily expands on the origin of main villain Ganon back when he was Ganondorf of an incest-driven Amazon harem species. Remember this game because it's the linchpin of the whole timeline. Yes, reverence for this game is that extreme. The series duology pattern held true for the next game, Majora's Mask from 2000, which is also considered a masterpiece. Once again, direct sequel with the same Link. I love the story of this one. Allegedly the plan was to do an enhanced version of Ocarina, literally making the same game again, but the game's director, Eiji Aonuma, wanted to do something new, so Miyamoto said if he could make a new Zelda game in a year, he wouldn't have to redo Ocarina. It's kind of weird coming from a man famously quoted as saying that a rushed game is forever bad, but it worked out and Aonuma basically took over Zelda so Miyamoto could go off and fulfill his dream of making Pikmin and forcing it down the throats of people who kinda don't want it. Let it go, Shigs. Let it go. A year later, Nintendo collaborated with Capcom to produce the Game Boy Color duology, Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages, though it was initially planned as a trilogy with the green-themed entry, Oracle of Cha-Ching. You had to connect and complete both games to get the true ending, where you fight classic Pig Ganon, meaning these two aren't a prequel for once. But then, where do they go? No one knew, and theory spanned the entire timeline, though Link's identical boat in these games and Link's Awakening suggested a connection. Following this, Nintendo of America put out this abomination that matched what fans had theorised, but with Link's Awakening coming at the end and all 8 games starring the same Link. Needless to say, no one bought into this stupid shit and just moved on with their lives. 2002 brought with it 2 new games, Four Swords and The Wind Waker. Both boasted a new cartoony art style that fans despised as soon as they saw it, but when they actually played the latter, they immediately fell in love with its relaxing tone and adorable expressiveness. And today it's considered one of the best in the series alongside Ocarina, Majora and Link to the Past, so Yeah. Wind Waker is explicitly a follow-up to Ocarina, with the opening in particular directly alluding to that adventure. In Ocarina, Link travels forward in time to become an adult and end Ganondorf's reign of terror. Once Ganon is dead, Zelda sends Link back in time, where he warns Zelda of the past, thus preventing Ganondorf's rise to power. Wind Waker's intro claims that Link saved Hyrule and disappeared, leading to the three goddesses flooding the kingdom to stop Ganondorf upon his return. This suggests that either Link never came back from his quest in Majora's Mask, or the original timeline Zelda sent him back from persisted without him. This was where the timeline really got complicated, and fans debated both the existence of a split timeline and which branch the post-Ocarina adventures subsequently took place in for years. As for Four Swords, the multiplayer feature of the GBA remake of A Link to the Past, both the art style and general duology pattern seem to suggest a connection to Wind Waker, though Hyrule isn't flooded, which then suggests it's either pre-Ocarina or in the new land Link and friends set sail for at the end of Wind Waker. But then Aonuma claimed it was another prequel. Lovely. Four Swords then received a sequel, Four Swords Adventures, on the GameCube in 2004. It's not a direct story sequel, though it features the same antagonist Vati, who successfully revives Ganon at the end of the game. Direct references to Ocarina and Link to the Past suggested it fell late in the timeline, but not which branch, assuming there was a split at all. In fact, the idea that the Four Swords games were a non-canonical side series was a fairly popular theory among fans, because they just found some of the details really hard to reconcile with the larger franchise timeline. The GBA saw a new title the same year, The Minish Cap, which delves into the origin of Vati, the Four Sword, and even Link's iconic hat, setting it even further back than the rest. Now that may seem frustrating, but at least you know where it goes without having to debate single or split timelines. In response to Wind Waker's initial backlash, 2006's Twilight Princess had a much more realistic style and darker tone. Well, if you consider surreal visuals, violent neck snapping, and this fight with the possessed Zelda to be darker. Similar to Wind Waker, however, the plot deals with Ganondorf's return after being sealed away in Ocarina, though in the newly established Twilight Realm instead of the flooded Hyrule. This would seem to be the other timeline's equivalent to Wind Waker then. It was later confirmed by Aonuma in a 2007 interview that there is a split timeline, but I guess it wasn't widely spread news since people were still confused about it. Plus, it was difficult to place any two of Ocarina's three follow-ups together in one branch away from the other. That and Aonuma's statement was made in Japanese, and well, Nintendo of America has kind of always had Funimation tier translators, so most people didn't trust the statement anyway, even if they did know about it. Wind Waker was given a DS follow-up in 2007, Phantom Hourglass. Luckily, it's a sequel with Phantom in the title instead of a prequel, so it's not a complete train wreck. It picks up shortly after Wind Waker with the same Link and Zelda, so its placement is simple once you know where its predecessor goes. 2009 Spirit Tracks is another DS sequel to Wind Waker, starring a new Link and Zelda, but still an explicit sequel set in New Hyrule. This one features the hero of trains. That is actually his title. And finally, Skyward Sword for the Wii released in November 2011 to celebrate the franchise's 25th anniversary, followed in December by the Hyrule Historia. This nifty art book came most notably with the complete timeline as officially designed by Nintendo. Some might say they did their best to give the fans what they wanted, others may say they slapped it together in a weekend to shut the fans up, but either way, here's how Nintendo solved the issue and managed to not really fix anything. The timeline begins with Skyward Sword, detailing the origin of both the Master Sword and the reincarnation cycle set in place by Demise, who later reincarnates into Ganondorf. He curses Link and Zelda to eternal reincarnation, thereby allowing them to forever foil his plans, the dumb, retarded a-hole. But since we also learn that Zelda's already the reincarnation of a previously unknown fourth goddess named Hylia, I'm not sure what Demise ultimately accomplishes here. Also, Link already has his hat, which takes a lot away from Minish Cap. This then leads to Minish Cap, Four Swords, and Ocarina. Nintendo utilised the idea of a branching timeline splitting off from Ocarina's climax, but they added a new detail. There is a third branch following the event of Link's death in the final battle.
Yeah, rip.
This gives us the child, adult, and fallen hero or downfall timelines, each of which has a number of names, but these are the most common. The way the branches happen is inconsistent though, as the adult and child function on a simple time travel concept that old timelines persist when a new one is created. Downfall meanwhile suggests that alternate outcomes branch off into new timelines unless Link's death was the original outcome before someone went back in time to save him, like a time witch or something. But this isn't game theory, so canon. Link's death leads to A Link to the Past, the Oracle's duology, which are usually ordered with seasons first, Link's Awakening, Zelda 1 and Zelda 2. Link's victory leads to the flooding of Hyrule, Wind Waker, Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. Link's return to the past leads to Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess and Four Swords Adventures. Each branch gives us 2 post-Ocarina links. It's not perfect, in fact it's kinda really bad, but as I said earlier, a functional timeline is basically impossible at this point, so I guess they deserve credit for trying, even if it took them far too long. The existence of the official timeline hasn't ended debates, however. While there's little dispute over what Nintendo laid out, the company remains frustratingly slow with giving the fans a placement for new entries. The 3DS's A Link Between Worlds from 2013 is an indirect sequel to A Link to the Past. It falls a few centuries after that Link's many adventures, but before Zelda 1, with a Link who travels to the Kingdom of Lorule, which is only less subtle than Zelda's counterpart being named Hilda. In 2015, another 3DS game, Triforce Heroes, was released. When the game was first unveiled, the Japanese guy said it hadn't been placed yet, the Canadian guy said it wasn't even part of the timeline, and it was only a day before release that Nintendo revealed it was set a few years after Link Between Worlds with the same Link. It's a bit of an odd choice when the 2 games use totally different art styles and, well, he kinda looks like he's gotten younger in the years between games. But Nintendo has spoken. This guy is this guy, end of story. This seems to suggest that the characters depicted in the Toon art style don't literally look like that and it's just an art style, that's it. And finally, in 2017, missing the franchise's big anniversary like they were fucking Sega, Zelda Wii U released as the Nintendo Switch launch title, Breath of the Wild. Aonuma's state of the game is set after Ocarina, and director Hidemaru Fujibayashi said it occurs long after any other game. As of right now, there's no official placement for the game aside from at the end of one of the branches. Honestly, I think it would fit best in an all-new branch, but until Nintendo reveals a 4th branch, we should try and place it in the existing timeline. And if you're going to do that, you have to look at the bigger picture. You can't let yourself get bogged down in small details because it's all just randomized. Even with the official timeline, they don't care. The subdued ceremony scene references previous games across all 3 branches, but the references differ by language. You can argue the Japanese references are canon, but it just seems like Nintendo intentionally trolling fans, so that scene can't be trusted. Also, Koroks, which evolved from the Kokiri after the Flood, appear in the game, suggesting it's after Spirit Tracks, but the Zora evolved into the Rito at the same time, but both species are present in Breath of the Wild and you can't just roll back evolution. I guess fish people only evolve into birds when the world is flooded? References and nods are one thing, but you need something more explicit here. The history of the Zora directly alludes to Ruto providing aid to Link in Ocarina. Now, since Link never sought her help in the child timeline, having successfully stopped Ganondorf's rise to power, we can rule out that branch, leaving only the 2 where Ganondorf did rise to power. I feel like the presence of classic landmarks such as the Temple of Time suggests it takes place in the original Hyrule, not new Hyrule from Spirit Tracks. Sure, they could have just built another Temple of Time, but I just can't imagine why they would. Additionally, the fact that the Master Sword is not still embedded in Ganondorf's skull in the flooded ruins of Old Hyrule from the end of Wind Waker, and indeed that Ganon returned at all, seems to suggest that it's not in the adult timeline either. Ultimately, there's no clear-cut way to place this, and I'd love to hear someone at Nintendo actually explain the game's placement, but from my research and what I consider important, I believe that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild takes place at the end of the Fallen Hero timeline. This is arguably supported by every other game released since the timeline was unveiled, taking place in this branch as well, and the utterly grim backstory of the game is fitting for the darker outcome of Ocarina. All that's left now is to add other key events mentioned as backstory. The creation myth from A Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time, the backstory of the goddess Hylia from Skyward Sword, the establishment of Hyrule, the war depicted in Minish Cap's backstory, the appearance of the hero of the Four Sword before Four Swords. That one is tough to say. The imprisoning war from A Link to the Past, which is now canonically separate from Ocarina, the Great Flood from the Wind Waker, the splitting of the Triforce from A Link Between Worlds, the initial appearance of Calamity Ganon 10,000 years before Breath of the Wild, and his reappearance 100 years before the game, and Breath of the Wild's upcoming story DLC that I forgot existed before I started writing and recording this video, which takes place after the main game. There are a few other backstory events that have no clear placement, so I'll leave those out. And that's everything. There are more games, some better than what's here, but this is the canon as laid out by Nintendo, so let's leave it at that. So without further ado, the hypothetically complete Zelda timelines go a little something like this. Unified timeline. The Golden Goddesses, Din, Nehru and Farore create the world. They then depart, leaving the Triforce as a symbol of their power in the hands of the goddess Hylia. The Demon King Demise attempts to seize the Triforce, prompting Hylia to hide the Triforce and surviving humans in the skies. She then seals Demise away at the cost of her own life. She later reincarnates in Skyloft as Zelda. Zelda falls in love with a fellow student named Link, who purifies the Goddess Sword into the Master Sword and defeats the revived Demise. Demise curses the three of them to eternal reincarnation. The humans return to the surface and establish the Kingdom of Hyrule. The kingdom is attacked by an army of monsters, bringing Hyrule to near ruin. The hero of men appears and seals the creatures away with the Picori blade. 100 years later, the wind mage Vati attacks a festival in honour of the Picori. The hero of the Minish appears and defeats Vati, who secretly survives as an amnesiac. He attacks Hyrule again, but is defeated by the hero of the Force Sword. Some generations later, Vati abducts Princess Zelda, intent on marrying her. A new incarnation of the hero uses the power of the Force Sword to seal Vati away again. Following a civil war that unites Hyrule under the royal family, Demise reincarnates as the Gerudo Ganondorf and conquers Hyrule. The hero of time travels 7 years into the future to face Ganondorf in a battle whose outcome forever changes the fate of Hyrule. Downfall timeline. The hero of time is killed by Ganondorf in the final battle. Ganondorf obtains the full Triforce and becomes the Demon King Ganon. The Seven Sages seal Ganon away in the Sacred Realm. Ganon later sends forth an army to ravage Hyrule, but the sages trap Ganon's forces with their master, bringing an end to the imprisoning war. The Dark Wizard Aghanim deposes the King of Hyrule and imprisons the current Zelda. The hero of legend saves Zelda and defeats Aghanim. He then travels to the Sacred Realm and defeats Ganon. Link wishes on the Triforce for Hyrule to return to peace, reviving all of those killed by Ganon's forces. The Twin Rover, attempting to revive Ganon, dispatch their generals to Holodrum and Labrynna. Link travels to both lands and eliminates their minions. The Twin Rover use Zelda as part of their final ritual, but Link's intervention causes Ganon to return in a feral form. Link again defeats Ganon and leaves to return to Hyrule. On his voyage home, Link is shipwrecked on an island dreamt up by the Windfish. Link defeats the Nightmare Entity and awakens the Windfish, erasing the island and its inhabitants from existence. The Triforce is split apart to keep any one being from possessing all three pieces again. Ganon obtains the Triforce of Power while the other two remain hidden. The Lorule wizard Yuga revives and merges with Ganon to conquer both kingdoms. The new hero of Hyrule recovers the Triforce of Courage and pursues Yuga to the dark worlds of Lorule. Yuga usurps Princess Hilda and seizes the Triforce of Wisdom. Link defeats Yuga and Hilda helps him and Zelda return to Hyrule. Link wishes on the completed Triforce to restore Lorule's own Triforce. Years later, Link ventures to the land of Hytopia, where he forms the group the Triforce Heroes to save the kingdom from the witch Lady Maud. Ganon once again returns to Hyrule, but the hero of Hyrule emerges to restore the fractured Triforce of Wisdom and slay the Demon King. Several years later, Link prevents the resurrection of Ganon and awakens the slumbering Zelda of old. Ganon returns in the form of Calamity Ganon. He is defeated by new incarnations of Link and Zelda and sealed away for 10,000 years. He returns again and grievously wounds the new incarnation of the hero. Zelda takes Link to the Shrine of Resurrection and seals herself and Ganon inside Hyrule Castle. 100 years later, Link awakens in the shrine and faces Ganon one final time. He puts an end to Ganon's reign of terror and finally restores peace to Hyrule. Adult timeline. The hero of time slays Ganondorf and is sent back to his own time by Princess Zelda. Ganondorf is later sealed in the Sacred Realm by the Seven Sages. He eventually breaks free, but no incarnation of the hero arrives to challenge him. The people of Hyrule take refuge in the mountains as the goddesses flood the land to keep Ganon sealed beneath what becomes known as the Great Sea. Over a century later, Ganondorf returns and captures the current Princess Zelda. The hero of winds restores the Master Sword and Triforce of Courage and travels through a gateway to Old Hyrule. Link vanquishes Ganon for good, and King Daphnis wishes on the Triforce for Hyrule to be washed away forever. Link and Zelda set sail to find a new land to found a new kingdom. Along the way, Link works with the sea captain Linebeck to defeat the sea creature Bellum. When Link and Zelda find land, they seal away the Demon King Malladus and christen the land New Hyrule. A century later, Zelda unites with the hero of Trains to defeat the revived Malladus and bring a lasting peace to New Hyrule. Child timeline. The hero of time returns to the past to warn the royal family of Ganondorf's schemes. Once Ganondorf is imprisoned, Link leaves Hyrule in search of his missing fairy companion, Navi. He is attacked by a Skull Kid possessed by Majora's Mask and finds himself in the land of Termina. Link releases the Skull Kid from Majora's hold and saves Termina from destruction. He continues his search for Navi and is never heard from again. Ganondorf is sealed in the Twilight Realm during his botched execution. He works with Zant to overthrow Princess Midna and launch an attack on Hyrule. The hero of Twilight works with Midna to defeat the two usurpers and restore order to both worlds. Hundreds of years later, Ganondorf is once again reborn. He creates a dark double of Link, which the hero of light draws the Force Sword to defeat, unwittingly releasing Vati. Link uses the sword to destroy Vati and Shadow Link, and seals Ganon within the Force Sword, ending the threat of the Demon King for good. Now, I probably could have included some of the debatably canon games on here, and I did consider it. You know, like Link's Crossbow Training, Hyrule Warriors, the Tingle games, Faces of Evil, the Wand of Gamelon.
You must die! Game!
So, in Breath of the Wild, Link is out of action for 100 years, and when he wakes up, everything's exactly the same, completely negating the purpose of the 100-year time skip. Why does that sound so familiar?